A foreclosure auction in downtown Las Vegas smelled like stale air conditioning and crushed dreams. Chen sat in the third row, clutching a manila envelope that contained her final lifeline, $8,500 scraped together from maxing out her last credit card, selling her grandmother's engagement ring, and borrowing against her 10-year-old Honda Civic's title at a predatory rate she'd pretended not to see. 34 years old, and this was what survival looked like. Her daughter Lily sat beside her, 8 years old, with dark braided hair and eyes that had learned too early to read tension in her mother's shoulders.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today.
The girl colored quietly in a donated activity book from the public library, the crayons worn down to nubs. Maya had been a real estate photographer before the pandemic decimated the housing market and took her contracts with it. 3 years of scrambling from gig to gig, 3 years of falling further behind on rent, 3 years of watching her daughter grow up in the backseat of a car more often than in an actual home. The auctioneer's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts like a blade. Lot 17. Former celebrity estate, Northwest Vegas, near Red Rock Canyon. 4,000 square feet, abandoned condition, sold as is. Property taxes delinquent for 6 years. Opening bid, $25,000. Maya's heart sank. $25,000 was nearly 3 times what she had. The room stayed silent. She glanced around at the 30 or so people scattered across the folding chairs, investors, flippers, lawyers representing banks. No one was moving. $20,000, the auctioneer tried again, his tone growing irritated. Still nothing. Maya felt something shift in her chest. $15,000. Come on, folks, this is prime real estate once you factor in land value alone. A man in the front row, expensive watch glinting, leaned toward his colleague. Maya caught his words clearly in the too quiet room. That's the Cher property. Place is cursed. 3 owners since she sold it in '98, all 3 went bankrupt or worse. Nobody local will touch it. The auctioneer was getting desperate. $10,000. I'm practically giving away a celebrity mansion here. Maya's hand shot up before her brain could stop it. Every head in the room turned to look at her. The auctioneer seemed genuinely surprised. $10,000 to the lady in row 3. Do I hear 11? Silence pressed down like a weight. The man with the expensive watch shook his head slowly, his expression somewhere between pity and disbelief. Going once. Going twice. The gavel came down with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. Sold for $10,000 to bidder 217. Maya's hands shook as she filled out the paperwork. Between the purchase price, fees, and immediate property tax payment, she handed over $8,347. That left her with $153 and a mansion that everyone in Las Vegas apparently believed was cursed. Lily tugged on her sleeve. Mama, did we just buy a house? We bought something, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. Whether it's actually a house remains to be seen. The drive took 45 minutes through increasingly sparse neighborhoods until civilization gave way to desert scrubland and red rock formations. The address led them down a private road that hadn't been maintained in years, potholes swallowing the Honda's already stressed suspension. Then they saw it. The mansion rose from the desert like a fever dream, ultra-modern architecture from the late 90s, all glass and steel and geometric angles that must have been cutting edge when Cher commissioned it. Now the glass was covered in dust and sun damage, several windows were cracked or missing entirely, and graffiti tagged the lower levels where vandals had gotten past whatever security had once existed. But even in its decay, the structure was stunning. 3 distinct levels visible from the outside, cantilevered sections that seemed to defy gravity, and at the very top, a rounded penthouse structure with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the entire Las Vegas Valley. Maya parked and sat for a moment, staring. What have I done? She whispered. It's like a castle, Lily breathed, her face pressed against the window. Can we go inside? The front door was secured with a chain and padlock, but the key the auction house had given her worked. The chain dropped away with a rattle that echoed in the empty desert air. Inside was worse than Maya had imagined. The foyer was vast, 20-foot ceilings, a chandelier that had crashed to the floor years ago and lay in a glittering pile of crystal shards, walls that might have been white once but were now stained with water damage and tagged with more graffiti. To the left, a sunken living room with a conversation pit that Cher had probably entertained celebrities in. To the right, what had been a formal dining space with built-in seating rotted through for moisture. Straight ahead, a massive staircase curved up to the second level, several steps cracked or missing. "Stay close to me," Maya said to Lily, her photographer's eye automatically cataloging the damage. Structural issues in the east wall. Foundation cracks visible through the foyer tiles. Electrical system probably shot. Plumbing likely destroyed. She'd bought a money pit. No, worse, she'd bought a money chasm. This wasn't a fixer-upper. This was a demolition project. They explored carefully, Maya testing each step before letting Lily follow. The second level held 6 bedrooms, each one a monument to 90s excess, built-in entertainment centers for CRT televisions, jacuzzi tubs with gold fixtures that had been stripped by looters, closets big enough to live in. One bedroom still had posters on the wall, left behind by some previous owner's teenage daughter. Maya noted them with a pang, boy bands from the early 2000s, a time when people still believed in this house's potential. The master's suite took up half the second floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the valley, now hazy with desert dust. A fireplace dominated one wall. The bathroom was larger than their last apartment, with a shattered marble shower and a soaking tub someone had apparently used as a skateboard ramp, based on the scuff marks. But it was the door at the back of the master closet that stopped Maya cold. It was steel, reinforced, completely out of place with the 90s glam aesthetic. It had a digital keypad that was dark and dead, unpowered for years. And it was slightly ajar, not open, but not fully closed, as if the electronic lock had failed mid-cycle. "What's that?" Lily asked. "I don't know." Maya approached carefully. The door was heavy, commercial grade. She pulled it open slowly. Beyond was a staircase. Not the sweeping, elegant stairs of the main house, but utilitarian metal steps leading up to the penthouse level she'd seen from outside. "Hello?" Maya called. Her voice echoed in the narrow stairwell. No response. Just the whisper of wind through gaps in the structure. She pulled out her phone and turned on the flashlight. The battery was at 23%, she'd forgotten to charge it last night because they'd been sleeping in the car and she'd been trying to conserve the portable charger for Lily's tablet. "Stay here," she told Lily. "I'm going to check this out." "I'm scared," Lily whispered. "Me too, baby. But we're together, and that means we're safe. Just stand right here in the doorway where I can see you, okay?" The stairs went up 30 feet, maybe more. At the top was another door, this one slightly ajar. Maya's heart pounded as she pushed it open. The penthouse was a revelation. Unlike the rest of the mansion, this space had been sealed off, protected from the elements and vandals. It was a single massive room, octagonal, with windows on all 8 sides offering 360-degree views of Las Vegas and the surrounding desert. But it wasn't the view that made Maya's breath catch. The room was a recording studio. Not a home studio, a professional facility. Soundproofing panels covered the walls between the windows. A massive mixing board sat against one wall, lights still blinking faintly on some kind of backup power. Racks of equipment lined another section, vintage synthesizers and effects processors that Maya recognized from her brief stint photographing musicians. And everywhere, were filing cabinets, cases, and sealed storage containers with labels printed in neat text, Master Recordings 1987 to 1992, Unreleased Material, Session Tapes 1993 to 1998. Maya's hands trembled as she opened the nearest filing cabinet. Inside were reel-to-reel tapes, each one carefully labeled. She recognized song titles, massive hits she'd grown up hearing on the radio.
If you find this story engaging, Please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this.
But there were also titles she didn't recognize, marked alternate version or unreleased. She moved to another cabinet. More tapes. More recordings. Some marked duets, uncleared for release, featuring names that made her stomach drop. Collaborations with music legends that had apparently never seen the light of day. The next cabinet held something different. Legal documents, contracts, copyright registrations. Maya pulled out a folder marked Master Recording Rights, Original Contracts 1965 to 1999. She didn't understand all the legal language, but she understood enough. These weren't just recordings. These were master tapes, the original source recordings that everything else was copied from. The documents suggested Cher had maintained ownership of her masters, unlike many artists of her era who'd signed them away to labels. And they were all here. Decades of work. Hundreds of songs. Unreleased material. Alternate versions. Live recordings. All of it carefully preserved in a climate-controlled penthouse studio that was still running on some kind of solar or battery backup system. Maya could hear humming faintly in the background. Maya sank into a chair that probably cost more than her car, her mind reeling. She'd bought this mansion for $8,347. A mansion that contained what had to be millions, maybe tens of millions, maybe more, in unreleased music and master recordings by one of the most successful entertainers in history. Her phone buzzed. Battery at 15%. She needed to get back downstairs to Lily. She stood, hands still shaking, and looked around the studio one more time. On the mixing board was a note, handwritten on yellowed paper, held down by a coffee mug that had probably been sitting there for years. Maya picked it up and read. To whoever finds this. If you're reading this, it means I never came back for these masters. Life took me in other directions, and this place became more burden than refuge. These recordings represent 35 years of my life. Some of them should never see daylight, they're rough, unfinished, or just not good enough. But some of them deserve to be heard. Use your judgment. Respect the music. And if you can make something good come from this, then it wasn't wasted. See. Maya folded the note carefully and slipped it into her pocket. She descended the stairs to find Lily right where she'd left her, coloring against the doorframe, perfectly obedient despite her fear. What's up there, Mama? Maya knelt down and pulled her daughter into a hug. Something that's going to change our lives, baby. Something that's going to change everything. That night, they slept in the cleanest bedroom Maya could find, one of the smaller spaces on the second floor where the windows were still intact and the floor wasn't too damaged. She'd bought 2 sleeping bags from Walmart with her remaining $153, along with bread, peanut butter, and a gallon of water. Lily fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the stress and excitement. Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. The logical move was to call someone, a lawyer, an auction house, someone who could tell her if what she'd found was actually valuable or if she was deluding herself. But something held her back. The note from Cher had said, "Use your judgment." The recordings had been left here, abandoned but carefully preserved, for over 20 years. What if calling the wrong person meant losing everything? What if there were legal claims on the recordings? What if Cher's estate or her former label could argue the masters had been improperly transferred or abandoned? Maya's experience as a real estate photographer had taught her that valuable things left in foreclosed properties were usually claimed by previous owners if they found out about them quickly enough. There was a grace period, legally, for retrieving personal property. How long had it been since Cher owned this place? Since 1998, according to the man at the auction. That was over 25 years ago. Surely any claim would have expired by now. But she needed to be smart about this. Needed to understand what she had before she told anyone. The next morning, Maya left Lily coloring in the bedroom with strict instructions not to leave the space, and hiked 2 miles to the nearest area with cell service. She sat on a rock formation with decent reception and started researching. What she learned made her hands shake so badly she nearly dropped her phone. Master recordings, particularly from major artists from the vinyl and CD era, were worth astronomical amounts. When Bob Dylan's master catalog sold, it went for over $300 million. When Bruce Springsteen sold his masters in music publishing, the deal was worth $500 million. Cher's catalog was different. She hadn't sold her masters as a package deal. Various articles suggested she'd maintained control over much of her early work, but the later masters from the late 80s through 90s, the period covered in that Penthouse studio, had been a subject of legal disputes between her and various labels. Most articles assumed those masters had been absorbed into label archives or destroyed in the various warehouse fires that had plagued the music industry. But they weren't destroyed. They were in a forgotten penthouse studio in a mansion everyone believed was cursed. Maya found a music industry valuation expert's blog post from 2 years ago that specifically mentioned Cher's lost masters from the 1987 to 1998 period. The expert estimated that if they ever surfaced, they could be worth $150 to $300 million, depending on condition and what unreleased material existed. $150 to $300 million. Maya had bought them for $8,347. She hiked back to the mansion in a daze. Lily was exactly where Maya had left her, being a perfect, patient angel despite having to pee in a bucket because the plumbing didn't work. "Mama, I'm hungry." They split peanut butter sandwiches made with the last of the bread. Maya rationed the water carefully. She needed to figure out their next move. The rational move was to secure legal counsel immediately. But lawyers cost money she didn't have. And if she went to a lawyer saying, "I found valuable property in a foreclosed mansion," they might report it to the previous owner or the auction company, and she could lose everything before she even understood what she had. She needed leverage. She needed evidence. She needed to protect herself and Lily before she revealed what she'd found. Maya spent that afternoon carefully photographing everything in the penthouse. Every tape, every label, every document. She used her professional camera, the one piece of equipment she'd refused to sell even in her darkest moments, and documented everything with the same methodical precision she'd used for real estate listings. By evening, she had over 2,000 photographs. She drove to the nearest library, a 40-minute trip, and uploaded everything to 3 separate cloud storage accounts while Lily played on the computers in the children's section. Insurance. If something happened to the physical recordings, at least there would be proof they'd existed. The librarian, a kind woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain, noticed Maya's frantic typing and expression of concentration. "Everything okay, hon?" Maya looked up, exhausted. "Just backing up some important files." "You look stressed. You need anything? Coffee? The machine's free." The kindness nearly broke Maya. She blinked back tears. "I'm okay. Thank you." But as she finished uploading and started the drive back to the mansion, Maya realized she wasn't okay. She was terrified. Because she'd stumbled into something massive, and she had no idea how to handle it without either losing everything or putting Lily at risk. The mansion felt different that night. Less abandoned, more expectant, like it was waiting to see what she'd do. Maya made another peanut butter sandwich for Lily. She'd bought more supplies at a gas station with the last of her money, and tucked her daughter into the sleeping bag. "Mama, why does everyone think this house is cursed?" "I don't know, baby. Sometimes people are superstitious. Do you think it's cursed?" Maya thought about that penthouse full of forgotten treasures, about Cher's note, about the strange luck that had led her to bid on a property nobody else wanted. "No. I think sometimes things that look scary are just waiting for the right person to see what they really are." Lily seemed satisfied with that answer. She fell asleep clutching a stuffed rabbit that had been with them through 3 evictions, 2 car repo scares, and countless nights when Maya had cried silently in the driver's seat while her daughter slept. Maya lay awake, listening to the desert wind howl through gaps in the mansion's damaged structure. Somewhere in the house, something creaked. She told herself it was just the building settling. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. At 3 in the morning, Maya heard it clearly. Footsteps on the first floor, slow and deliberate, exploring. She was on her feet instantly, heart hammering. She'd locked the front door, she'd checked it twice, but the mansion had dozens of broken windows and damaged sections where someone could enter. She grabbed the tire iron she'd been using as a makeshift weapon and crept to the bedroom door. Lily stirred but didn't wake. The footsteps were coming up the main staircase now. Multiple people, from the sound of it. At least 2, maybe 3. Maya's mind raced. She couldn't defend herself and Lily against multiple intruders. Her phone was charging in the bedroom, but they were too far from civilization for anyone to arrive in time if she called 911. The footsteps reached the second floor landing. "Check the bedrooms," a man's voice said. Not loud, but not whispering either. They weren't trying to be stealthy. Maya made a decision. She woke Lily with a hand over her mouth, signaling silence. She grabbed their sleeping bags, their small backpack of belongings, and guided her daughter out of the bedroom through the master suite. They slipped into the master closet just as she heard the first bedroom door open down the hall. "Nothing here." "Keep looking. The auction record shows she bought the place yesterday. She has to be here somewhere." They knew about her. They knew she'd bought the property. Maya's hands shook as she guided Lily through the steel door and up the stairs to the penthouse. She closed the door as silently as possible and prayed the men wouldn't find it. In the penthouse, she positioned herself and Lily behind a bank of equipment, the tire iron clutched in white-knuckled hands. Through the octagonal windows, Las Vegas glittered in the distance, a city of lights and life that felt impossibly far away. Below them, footsteps entered the master suite. "Check the closet." Maya's heart stopped. The steel door opened. Light from flashlights flooded the stairwell. "Well, look at this. Secret staircase. Think she went up?" "Only one way to find out." The footsteps started ascending. Maya stood, tire iron raised, positioning herself between the stairs and Lily. If these men wanted to hurt her daughter, they'd have to go through her first. But when the first man emerged into the penthouse, he stopped cold, his flashlight sweeping across the studio, the equipment, the filing cabinets. "Holy shit," he breathed. The second man appeared behind him. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from leather by years in the desert sun. When his eyes found Maya, he raised both hands slowly. "Easy," he said. "We're not here to hurt anyone." "Bullshit," Maya spat, her voice steadier than she felt. "Get out of my house or I call the police." "Your house." The younger man laughed. "Lady, do you have any idea what you found here?" "I know I bought this property legally at auction. That makes everything in it mine." The older man's expression shifted to something like respect. "That's technically correct. But you need to understand what you're dealing with. My name is Richard Moss. I'm a music rights attorney. I represented Cher's business interests for 15 years. Maya's grip tightened on the tire iron. "If you represented her, why are you breaking into her old house in the middle of the night?" "Because when I saw the auction listing come through yesterday, I realized what property was being sold. And I knew if those master recordings were still here, you'd just made the biggest discovery in music history. Also the most dangerous one." "Dangerous?" "There are 3 major labels, 4 independent studios, and at least 6 private collectors who've been looking for these masters for over 20 years. Some of them have spent millions trying to track them down. Some of them have done worse than spend money." The younger man added, "My name is Jason Torres. I'm a private investigator. Mr. Moss hired me to monitor the property when he saw the auction listing." "So you broke in instead of just knocking on the door?" "We did knock," Moss said. "For 20 minutes. Then we heard what sounded like furniture being moved and got worried. We thought maybe someone else had beaten us here." Maya's phone was still downstairs. She had no way to verify their story. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't," Moss said bluntly. You don't know us. But here's what I can tell you. If you found what I think you found, you need serious legal help, and you need it fast. Because once word gets out that Cher's lost masters have been located, you're going to be swimming with sharks. I haven't told anyone. Doesn't matter. You bought the property at public auction. Someone's going to put 2 and 2 together. Probably already has. Maya's arms were getting tired from holding the tire iron. Behind her, she heard Lily whimper softly. That sound made her decision. Okay. Let's say I believe you. What do you want? I want to help you, Moss said. In exchange for a reasonable finder's fee, I can help you authenticate these recordings, establish legal ownership, and navigate the sale or licensing. Without someone who knows this industry, you're going to get eaten alive. How much is a reasonable finder's fee? 10% of whatever you make. Maya did the math. If the recordings were worth even $100 million, 10% was $10 million. That was an astronomical amount for this lawyer to make just for helping her. But 90% of $100 million was still $90 million. More money than she could comprehend. I need time to think. You don't have time, Torres said. I'm not the only investigator monitoring foreclosure auctions. And I'm one of the good guys. As if on cue, Maya heard the sound of vehicles approaching outside. Multiple engines, moving fast. Torres moved to one of the windows. Shit. We've got company. 3 SUVs, coming in hot. Moss's face went pale. That's Vanguard Protection Services. They do acquisitions for private collectors. What does that mean? It means they're not here to talk. We need to leave. Right now. The SUVs screeched to a stop outside. Men poured out. Maya counted 6 of them, all dressed in tactical gear that looked military. There's no exit, she said, panic rising. The only way down is the stairs we came up. Actually, Torres said, moving to the opposite side of the penthouse, looks like there's a service elevator over here. Might still work if the backup power's functional. They rushed over. Sure enough, a small elevator was built into the corner, probably original to the house design. Torres hit the button. Nothing happened. Power's dead to it, he muttered. Can we override? Below them, they heard the front door being kicked in. Spread out, a commanding voice barked. Check every level. They're here somewhere. Moss pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. No, Maya said urgently. If police come, they'll investigate, they'll find the recordings, there'll be questions about legal ownership. Better than getting shot by mercenaries, Torres snapped. Lily was crying now, soft, frightened sobs. Maya pulled her daughter close, her mind racing through impossible options. Then she noticed something. On the mixing board, among all the controls and switches, was a panel labeled security system. It was lit up, powered by the same backup system running the studio. She rushed over and flipped it open. Inside was a screen showing camera feeds, the front entrance, the main staircase, the second floor landing. And a row of controls labeled in technical jargon she didn't understand. Except one. Emergency lockdown. Maya hit the button. Throughout the mansion, she heard the sound of metal panels slamming down over windows, doors sealing, locks engaging. On the camera feeds, she watched the tactical team react with confusion as the house suddenly transformed into a fortress. What the hell did you just do? Torres asked. Bought us some time. Maya's hands were shaking. Maybe. Through the penthouse windows, they watched the men below regroup. One of them, clearly the leader, pulled out a phone and made a call. This is Kramer. Target location is secured with automated defenses. Recommend tactical insertion. Yes, sir. Understood. He gestured to his team. They retreated to their SUVs, but didn't leave. They were setting up a perimeter. They're not going away, Moss said quietly. They'll wait us out or find a way in. Who are these people? Maya demanded. Why are they doing this? Because you found something worth killing for, Moss said. And because people like that don't ask permission when they want something. Maya looked at Lily, then at the filing cabinets full of master recordings, then at the men surrounding her house. She'd bought a mansion for $8,347 hoping to find shelter for her daughter. Instead, she'd found a fortune in a war. 48 hours ago, her biggest problem had been where they'd sleep that night. Now she was trapped in a penthouse with strangers while armed mercenaries surrounded the building, fighting over master recordings worth hundreds of millions. Her phone was still downstairs. The emergency lockdown had sealed them inside as effectively as it had sealed others out. And somewhere in this city, other people were probably already moving pieces on a board Maya didn't know existed until yesterday. She thought about Cher's note. Use your judgment, it had said. Respect the music. Right now, Maya would have settled for just surviving the night. She moved back to the security panel and studied the camera feeds more carefully. The system was more sophisticated than she'd realized, dozens of cameras throughout the property, motion sensors, even what looked like environmental controls. And in the corner of the screen, a button labeled Silent Alarm, Emergency Services. Maya hit it. Nothing visible happened, but Torres checked his phone and nodded. My alert monitoring app just picked up a distress signal from this address. So did every scanner feed in the county. Police are going to be here in 15, maybe 20 minutes. That's assuming they come at all, Moss said. We're pretty far outside normal patrol zones. Below them, the tactical team was using some kind of equipment on the front door. The metal panel over it was starting to glow red from what Maya guessed was a cutting torch. They're getting in, she said, trying to keep her voice calm for Lily's sake. Even if police come, these people will be inside before that happens. Torres moved to the elevator again, this time prying open the control panel. If I can bypass the power, yeah, here we go. The elevator hummed to life. Can we use it to get out? Maya asked. Maybe. But we'd be trapped in a metal box with nowhere to go if they're waiting at the bottom. Better than being trapped up here. Moss shook his head. Actually, I have a different idea. We send the elevator down empty. They'll think we're escaping. While they're dealing with that distraction, we use the main stairs to get to a different part of the house. And then what? Maya demanded. This place is surrounded. Then we hide until the police arrive. This mansion is huge. There must be dozens of places they won't think to look. It was a terrible plan. But Maya couldn't think of a better one. They heard the metal panel over the front door finally give way with a shriek of torn steel. The tactical team was inside. Go, Torres said, hitting the elevator button. The doors closed and the mechanism descended. They rushed for the stairs, Maya carrying Lily, Moss in front, Torres bringing up the rear. They descended as quietly as possible, emerging into the master's suite just as they heard the elevator doors open on the first floor. Clear, someone shouted from below. They're not in the lift. Fan out. They have to be somewhere. Moss led them through the second floor, moving quickly through rooms Maya hadn't fully explored yet. They passed what looked like an old library, a media room with theater seating, and finally emerged in what had been a servants' quarters section, smaller rooms, more utilitarian. Here, Moss whispered, opening a narrow door Maya had assumed was a closet. Behind it was another staircase, this one clearly meant for service staff to move through the house unseen. They descended into darkness. The stairs were steep, the walls close. Lily was trembling in Maya's arms. They emerged into what had to be a basement level, cold, dark, with a ceiling so low Torres had to duck. The air smelled of mildew and desert dust. Where are we? Maya whispered. Service level, Moss replied, pulling out his phone for light. Most mansions from this era had them. Staff could move supplies, laundry, equipment without being seen by residents or guests. The phone light revealed a warren of small rooms and corridors. Storage spaces, old mechanical rooms, what looked like it had been a wine cellar. And at the far end, barely visible in the shadows, another steel door. What is this place? Maya breathed. They approached carefully. This door was like the one leading to the penthouse, commercial grade, reinforced, with a digital keypad. But unlike that one, this lock was still powered, a small red LED blinking steadily. Torres examined it. This is active security. Whatever's behind here, someone's been maintaining it. Can you open it? Not without the code. These things are military grade. We're talking 12-digit combinations with biometric backup. Above them, they heard footsteps. The tactical team had reached the second floor. Master suite's clear. Check the closets. They've got to be here somewhere. Maya looked at the door, then at Lily, then back at the door. What if we could open it? Would that help? Depends what's behind it, Torres said. Could be another exit. Could be a dead end. Could be... Moss interrupted, his voice strange. Could be the other half of the collection. What? He was staring at the door like he'd seen a ghost. When Cher built this place, there were rumors. Industry talk about secret vaults, backup masters, insurance copies. Everyone assumed it was just paranoid celebrity behavior. But what if it wasn't? You're saying there's more recordings down here? I'm saying if she built one hidden studio, she might have built two. One for working, one for archival storage. The footsteps above were getting closer. They heard doors being kicked open, furniture moved. We need to make a decision, Torres said urgently. Try to hide down here, try to get past them, or try to open that door. Maya looked at the keypad. 12 digits. The red light blinked at her like a tiny heartbeat. And then she remembered. She'd photographed everything in the penthouse, including papers on the mixing board. Including a technical manual. And on one page, she'd barely glanced at it at the time, there had been security codes. My camera, she said. It's in the backpack. The manual I photographed might have the code. Torres and Moss exchanged glances. Above them, footsteps were descending the main staircase. Basement level, move. Maya's hands shook as she pulled out the camera. She powered it on, battery at 34%, and scrolled through images frantically. So many photographs, thousands of them, all documenting the penthouse. There. The technical manual. She zoomed in on the page. Security codes, secondary vault, 74198612391. She punched in the numbers, praying she'd read them correctly in the dim light of the phone and camera screen. The keypad beeped. The light turned green. The lock disengaged with a heavy clunk. Torres pulled the door open just as they heard the tactical team enter the basement level behind them. Movement. Southeast corner. They rushed through the door, Moss pulling it closed behind them. The lock re-engaged automatically. They were in another stairwell, but this one descended deeper into the earth. The walls were concrete, the stairs metal, the construction clearly meant to last centuries. How far down does this go? Maya whispered. Only one way to find out. They descended. 20 steps. 30. 40. Maya lost count, her legs burning, Lily heavy in her arms. Finally, the stairs ended at another door, this one already open. Beyond it was a room that made the penthouse studio look like a closet. The vault, and it was clearly a vault, not just a studio, was enormous. 40 feet across at least, with a ceiling 12 feet high. The walls were lined floor to ceiling with climate-controlled storage units, each one sealed and labeled with dates, projects, and catalog numbers. In the center of the room was a workstation with computer equipment that looked far more modern than anything in the penthouse. LED lights glowed softly, indicating the system was powered and active. Jesus Christ, Moss breathed. This isn't just masters. This is everything. Publishing rights, session recordings, contracts, video masters, this is the complete archive. Maya set Lily down gently. Her daughter was exhausted, terrified, too scared even to cry anymore. Torres was examining the door they'd come through. We're locked in. That door sealed behind us. I can't open it from this side without the code. So we're trapped in a concrete bunker 40 feet underground with a tactical team trying to get in from above and no other exit. Torres looked at Moss. Unless you know something I don't? Moss was staring at the storage units, his face slack with amazement. I can't even estimate the value. We're talking about the complete recorded legacy of a 5-decade career. Performance videos, alternate takes, unreleased collaborations. I don't care if it's the lost recordings of Elvis himself, Maya interrupted, her voice sharp. We're trapped and my daughter is terrified. How do we get out? Torres had moved to the computer workstation. He touched the keyboard and monitors flickered to life, showing the same security camera system Maya had accessed upstairs. On the screens, they watched the tactical team working on the basement vault door, using the same cutting equipment they'd used on the front entrance. They'll be through in 20 minutes, maybe less, Torres said. That door won't hold forever. Can you call the police from down here? Maya asked. Is there internet, a phone line, anything? Torres checked the computer. Systems isolated. No external connections. This place was designed to be completely secure, which means no communications in or out. Above them, through layers of concrete and steel, Maya heard the muffled sound of sirens. The police were finally arriving. Will they help? Lily asked in a small voice. Will the police save us? I don't know, baby. They watched on the monitors as police cars pulled up outside, 3 of them, officers emerging with the cautious body language of people responding to an alarm in a known abandoned property. The tactical team didn't retreat. Instead, their leader approached the police, hands visible, posture non-threatening. Can we hear what they're saying? Maya asked. Torres adjusted something on the computer. Audio crackled to life. Responding to an emergency alarm from this location, one of the officers was saying. The tactical team leader replied smoothly. We're private security hired by the property's previous owner to retrieve valuable assets that weren't included in the foreclosure sale. We have documentation. He handed over papers. The police officer examined them under flashlight. These look legitimate, the officer said. But you can't just break into a property, even if you have a claim. You need to go through proper legal channels. Understood, officer. We'll wait for our attorney to arrive. Can we remain on site to ensure the property isn't further damaged? The officers conferred. Fine. But no more breaching doors. You wait for legal process. Understood? Absolutely, officer. Thank you. The police left. Maya felt her hope drain away. They believed him. Of course they did, Moss said bitterly. Vanguard has been doing this for 20 years. They know exactly how to look legitimate to local police. Torres was studying the monitors more carefully. Wait. Look at this. He pulled up a different camera view, one showing what looked like an exterior angle of the property from a camera position somewhere in the desert scrubland. In the distance, more vehicles were approaching. Not police, not tactical teams. These were civilian vehicles, a mix of rental cars and SUVs. Who are they? Maya asked. I don't know, Torres said. But they're coming fast. They watched as the vehicles pulled up. More men emerged, but these weren't dressed in tactical gear. They looked like lawyers, businessmen, accompanied by what were probably their own security teams. Within 15 minutes, there were over 30 people outside the mansion, multiple groups, all of them clearly there for the same reason. Word's out, Moss said quietly. I told you this would happen. Once people realized what property was being auctioned, every collector, every label, every lawyer with a claim was going to descend. We're looking at millions of dollars in billable hours standing right there. On the screens, the groups were circling each other warily, like predators around a kill. Arguments were breaking out. Someone was making phone calls. Camera flashes suggested media had arrived. "This is a circus," Torres muttered. Lily tugged on Maya's shirt. "Mama, I'm really hungry." Maya's heart broke. In all the chaos, she'd forgotten that Lily hadn't eaten since the peanut butter sandwich 12 hours ago. She checked her backpack, empty except for her camera and some spare clothes. "I know, baby. I'm sorry. We'll get you food soon, okay?" "How?" Lily asked with the devastating logic of children. "We're trapped." She was right. They were 40 feet underground, locked in a vault, with no food, limited water, and an 8-year-old who needed her mother to have answers Maya didn't have. Torres was still working at the computer. "There's some kind of communication system built into this security setup. It's not connected to the internet, but it links to speakers throughout the property. So we can talk to them?" "Yeah." Whether that's a good idea is another question. Maya thought about it. They were trapped. The tactical team would eventually breach the door. More people were arriving every minute. Staying silent wasn't a strategy, it was just delaying the inevitable. "Let me talk to them." "Maya," Moss started. "I'm not asking permission. This is my property, those are my recordings, and I'm not hiding anymore. Let me talk." Torres set up the microphone. Maya took a deep breath and pressed the button to broadcast throughout the property. Her voice echoed from speakers embedded in the mansion's walls. "My name is Maya Chen. I purchased this property legally at public auction yesterday for $8,347. Everything in it, including any recordings or other assets, belongs to me under Nevada foreclosure law. You're all trespassing." Silence. Then, through the cameras, she watched the crowd's reaction. Arguments erupted. Someone was already on the phone, presumably with lawyers. One man stepped forward, the tactical team leader who'd spoken to the police. He looked directly at a camera, as if he knew exactly where Maya might be watching from. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice picked up by the security system's microphones. "My name is James Kramer. I represent the Cordell Collection, a private archive that has been searching for these masters for 18 years. We have documentation proving prior claim." "I don't care," Maya interrupted, her voice stronger now. "You broke into my property. You threatened me and my daughter. Whatever claim you think you have, you pursue it through courts, not by hiring mercenaries." Another man pushed forward, older, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit despite the late hour. "Miss Chen, I'm Harrison Aldridge, attorney for Vanguard Music Rights. We represent the label that originally recorded many of these masters. Under contractual agreements from that era, those recordings revert to label ownership if they're ever recovered." "Then you should have kept better track of them," Maya shot back. "They were abandoned in a foreclosed property. That makes them mine." A woman's voice, sharp and authoritative. "Miss Chen, this is Caroline West, entertainment litigation attorney. I can see we're going to have a significant legal battle ahead. But for the safety of you and your daughter, I strongly suggest you exit the property now and let this proceed through proper channels. So you can all rush in and I lose everything before I even get to court?" "I don't think so." More arguments erupted. Maya watched on the monitors as what looked like two different security teams faced off, hands moving toward weapons. "Stop!" Maya shouted into the microphone. "Everyone stop." Surprisingly, they did. Her voice, amplified through the speakers, cut through the chaos. "Here's what's going to happen," Maya said, making it up as she went along. "In this vault with me is music industry attorney Richard Moss and private investigator Jason Torres. Mr. Moss is going to help me catalog and authenticate everything here. Then we're going to establish legal ownership through the courts. Anyone who has a legitimate claim can file it properly. But if any of you try to force your way in here, if any of you threaten me or my daughter again, I go to the media with everything I've found and every recording gets released publicly for free. Do you understand?" The crowd's reaction was a mix of anger and fear. Because Maya had just threatened the one thing that would destroy their investments, public domain release. Aldrich spoke again, his voice controlled but with an edge. Miss Chen, you don't want to do that. There are legal protections, copyright laws. I'm sure there are. And I'll respect them once everyone else respects my legal right to the property I purchased. Until then, this is a standoff. Moss leaned close to her. That was brilliant, he whispered. Risky as hell, but brilliant. On the monitors, they watched as the various factions retreated to their vehicles, clearly regrouping and calling for more legal support. How long can we hold them off? Torres asked. Not long, Moss admitted. Eventually, someone will get an emergency court order or just decide to risk it and breach anyway. Then we need to work fast, Maya said. You said you can authenticate this stuff? Do it. Document everything. Create a legal record that I own this and they can't just take it. That's going to take days, maybe weeks. Then we better get started. They worked through the night. Moss, it turned out, had encyclopedic knowledge of music industry contracts, recording dates, and legal precedents. He moved through the vault storage units, pulling out documents, cross-referencing catalog numbers, verifying authenticity. Torres set up a makeshift security rotation, monitoring the cameras while Maya helped Moss with the documentation. Lily fell asleep on a chair, exhausted beyond fear. Maya covered her with a jacket and tried not to think about the fact that her 8-year-old daughter was sleeping in a concrete bunker while armed groups surrounded them. As dawn approached, Moss compiled his preliminary findings. Okay, he said, his voice hoarse from hours of work. Here's what we've got. In the Penthouse alone, there are 347 master recordings spanning 1987 to 1998. That includes 17 albums, 6 collaborative projects, and 53 unreleased songs. Conservative value, $85 million. Maya's hands shook. $85 million. Just from the Penthouse. Down here, Moss continued, it's even more extensive. This vault contains the complete archive, every recording session, every alternate take, every piece of video footage, every contract, every piece of correspondence. It's a complete historical record of a career spanning from 1965 to 1998. Value? Moss met her eyes. If you control this archive, if you can establish clear legal ownership and fight off all the competing claims, you're looking at $275 million. Maybe more if you license it properly. $275 million. Maya had bought it for $8,347. Can I actually keep this? She asked. Legally? That's complicated, Moss admitted. Under Nevada foreclosure law, personal property left in a foreclosed residence generally transfers to the new owner if it's been abandoned. The key questions are, how long has it been abandoned? Did the previous owners maintain any legal claim? Are there contractual obligations that supersede property law? Translate that. It means we're going to court, and it could go either way. But with the right legal team, I think you can win. Torres interrupted from the monitoring station. We've got a problem. Multiple news vans just arrived. This is going public. They watched as satellite trucks set up, reporters doing stand-ups in front of the mansion, cameras capturing the crowd of lawyers and security teams. And then Maya's phone rang. She'd forgotten she even had it with her, forgotten it had battery. But someone was calling from a number she didn't recognize. She answered. Hello? Miss Chen, my name is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I'm the director of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm calling to offer assistance. I don't understand. I saw the news reports about master recordings being discovered in Las Vegas. I want to make sure those recordings are preserved properly, regardless of who ends up owning them. I'm prepared to offer the Hall of Fame's resources, authentication services, archival preservation, legal support, free of charge. Why would you do that? Because these recordings are cultural history, Miss Chen. They belong in proper archives, properly preserved. not hidden in vaults or destroyed in legal battles. I don't care who profits from them. I care that they survive. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. After hours of being threatened and fought over, someone was offering help with no strings attached. Thank you, she managed. Thank you. Is it true you're trapped in the property? Yes. There are people outside who want to take the recordings by force. Then let me call the FBI. Cultural property theft is a federal crime. If these people are threatening you, federal law enforcement needs to be involved. The police already came. They left. Local police aren't equipped for this. The FBI's art crime team is. Let me make some calls. The call ended. Maya looked at Moss and Torres. Did that just happen? I think help is actually coming, Torres said, checking his monitoring apps. I'm seeing federal law enforcement activity lighting up on scanner feeds. 2 hours later, the FBI arrived. Not a few agents, but a full tactical team, accompanied by representatives from the art crime team, the Nevada Attorney General's office, and what looked like enough lawyers to fill a courthouse. On the monitors, Maya watched as the FBI agents cleared the property, ordering everyone back, establishing a perimeter, and transforming the circus into a controlled scene. An FBI agent named Rodriguez spoke into one of the exterior cameras, knowing Maya was likely watching. Miss Chen, I'm Special Agent Rodriguez. We're here to ensure your safety and to begin the process of properly documenting and preserving what you found. Can you open the vault door? Maya looked at Moss. Can we trust them? FBI art crime team is legitimate. They're not here to steal anything. They're here to make sure this gets handled properly. Maya hit the button to unlock the vault door from the inside. The door unsealed with a hiss of equalizing pressure. On the monitors, she watched agents descend into the basement, weapons drawn but lowered, moving with professional caution. When they reached the vault entrance, Rodriguez was first through. He saw Maya, Lily asleep in her arms, Moss, and Torres, and his expression shifted from alert to concerned. You've had a rough night, he said gently. Let's get you and your daughter somewhere safe, and then we'll sort out the rest. The FBI established a command center at a nearby hotel. Maya and Lily were given a suite, protected by agents, and for the first time in 36 hours, Maya felt like she could breathe. Lily woke up long enough to eat room service, the first hot meal she'd had in days, then crashed again, her small body finally releasing the tension and fear. Maya sat in the bathroom with the shower running, finally allowing herself to cry. For the fear, for the stress, for the impossibility of everything that had happened. She'd bought a mansion hoping for shelter. She'd found a fortune that people were willing to kill for. And now she had to figure out if she could actually keep it, or if it would all be taken away by legal battles she couldn't afford to fight. Rodriguez knocked on the bathroom door. Miss Chen? When you're ready, we need to debrief. Maya splashed water on her face, steadied herself, and emerged. The debriefing took 6 hours. Maya told them everything: the auction, the penthouse, the vault, the tactical team, the siege. Moss and Torres were interviewed separately, their stories corroborating hers. By evening, Rodriguez had news. The individuals who attempted to forcibly enter the property have been arrested on multiple charges. James Kramer and his team are facing federal charges for attempted theft of cultural property and making terroristic threats. We're investigating the companies that hired them. What about the recordings? Who owns them? That's going to be determined through legal proceedings. But here's what I can tell you. Under the Cultural Property Implementation Act and Nevada property law, there's a strong argument that you have legal claim as the property's owner. However, there are multiple parties filing competing claims, previous estate owners, record labels, and what we're calling interested cultural institutions. How long will this take? Months, maybe years. But the court will appoint a custodian for the recordings in the meantime, someone to preserve and catalog them while ownership is determined. Dr. Mitchell at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has offered to serve in that capacity. Would you be comfortable with that? Maya thought about the voice on the phone, offering help without demands. Yes. I trust her. The legal battle that followed was unlike anything Maya could have imagined. 43 different parties filed claims on the recordings. Record labels argued contractual rights. Previous estate owners claimed the property had been improperly foreclosed. Music publishers demanded their share of publishing rights. A distant relative of Cher's former business manager even tried to claim abandoned assets. But Maya had something none of them had: the actual recordings, clear documentation of the purchase, and the sympathy of the court. The judge assigned to the case, a woman named Eleanor Reeves who'd been handling property disputes for 30 years, cut through the noise quickly. "This is very simple," she said during a preliminary hearing Maya attended via video conference from the FBI safe house. Miss Chen purchased the property legally. The recordings were in that property, abandoned by previous owners for over 20 years. Unless someone can show clear proof of maintained ownership or prior valid claim, the recordings belong to Miss Chen under Nevada law. "Your Honor," one of the label attorneys protested, "our client spent millions producing these recordings. The contracts clearly state." "The contracts, which your client appears to have lost or failed to enforce for 25 years, will be examined. But the burden of proof is on you, not Miss Chen. She's the legal property owner. You're the one making claims." The court appointed Dr. Mitchell as custodian. She and her team from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame cataloged everything meticulously, treating the recordings with the care of archaeologists uncovering ancient treasures. Maya watched via video calls as they worked, marveling at the dedication, the expertise, the sheer love these archivists had for the music. "We found something extraordinary," Dr. Mitchell told her during one update. A full concert recording from 1989, Cher with multiple special guests, all on master tapes in pristine condition. "This has never been released or even acknowledged to exist. It's historically significant. What do we do with it? That depends on you. And on what the court decides." The trial took 18 months. Maya testified for 3 days, walking the jury through everything: her desperation at the auction, the discovery, the siege, the FBI rescue. She showed them her receipts, her documentation, her photographs. Moss testified as an expert witness, explaining the value and rarity of the masters, the legal precedents for abandoned property, the failure of labels and estates to maintain proper custody. Torres testified about the attempts at theft, the threats, the dangerous behavior of parties trying to circumvent legal process. And Dr. Mitchell testified about the cultural importance of the archive, the need for proper preservation regardless of ownership. The defense called dozens of witnesses, label executives, contract lawyers, music industry veterans. They argued that Maya was an opportunist trying to profit from something she hadn't earned, that the recordings should be restored to their rightful owners. But they couldn't overcome one simple fact: they'd abandoned the recordings for over 20 years. They'd lost track of them, failed to properly catalog them, allowed them to sit in a foreclosed property while they did nothing. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. When they returned, the forewoman read the verdict: "We find in favor of the defendant, Maya Chen. The recordings are her legal property under Nevada foreclosure law." Maya, watching from a video conference room with Lily beside her, felt her legs give out. She sank into a chair, Lily's arms around her, both of them crying. They'd won. The judge wasn't finished. However, she continued, "Given the cultural significance of these recordings and the multiple parties with financial interests, the court is imposing certain conditions on their use and sale." Maya's celebration froze. Miss Chen will retain ownership and primary financial benefit. However, she cannot destroy the recordings, cannot prevent their eventual archival preservation, and must work with legitimate claimants to resolve publishing and performance rights. Specific terms to be negotiated through court-supervised mediation. It wasn't everything Maya had hoped for, but it was enough. Over the following year, the mediation process established the framework. Maya retained ownership of the physical masters and primary control over licensing. Record labels retained certain publishing rights and would receive a percentage of any commercial releases. previous estate owners received a small settlement for their claims. Cultural institutions were guaranteed access for preservation and historical research. And Maya received her first licensing deal, a major streaming service paying $15 million for the rights to release the unreleased concert recordings as a special documentary series. $15 million. After legal fees, after settlements, after taxes, Maya walked away with $9.2 million. It wasn't the $275 million the recordings were ultimately valued at. But for a woman who'd bought a mansion with her last $8,347, it was life-changing. She bought a real house, not a mansion, just a comfortable 3-bedroom in a good school district. She set up a trust fund for Lily's education. She invested in a small real estate photography business, building it properly this time with actual capital and business planning. And she donated $1 million to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for music preservation and archival work. Dr. Mitchell called her when the donation cleared. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did. You helped me when you didn't have to. When everyone else was trying to take things from me, you tried to preserve them. This is my way of saying thank you." 2 years after she'd bought the mansion, Maya attended the premiere of the documentary series based on the concert recordings. She wore a dress that actually fit her, sat in a seat that hadn't been purchased with desperation, and watched as Lily, now 10 years old, confident and bright, exclaimed over seeing their story told on screen. The documentary was honest about everything. Maya's poverty, her desperation at the auction, the discovery, the siege, the legal battle. It showed the cultural importance of the recordings while also showing the human cost of the music industry's failures to preserve its own history. When Maya appeared on screen, interviewed about the experience, Lily squeezed her hand. "You were so brave, Mama." "We were brave," Maya corrected. "We survived together." After the premiere, reporters wanted interviews. Maya gave them, but kept her answers focused on the preservation importance, not the money. "This was never about getting rich," she told one journalist. "It was about survival, and then about making sure something culturally important wasn't lost or destroyed. The money is nice, it means my daughter has security I never had. But the real victory was proving that even when powerful people want to take something from you, the law can still work if you fight hard enough." The mansion itself became a museum. Maya donated the building to the state of Nevada with the stipulation that it be preserved as a cultural site, documenting both Cher's legacy and the story of the recording's discovery and recovery. The Penthouse studio was restored exactly as it had been, a time capsule of 90s recording technology. The underground vault became an exhibition space about music preservation and the importance of archival work. And in the entrance, a plaque read. In December 2023, Maya Chen purchased this property for $8,347, seeking shelter for herself and her daughter. What she found instead changed music history and reminded us that treasures aren't always where we expect them, and heroes aren't always who we expect them to be. On the 5-year anniversary of the purchase, Maya returned to the Mansion Museum for a special ceremony. Lily, now 13, stood beside her as they cut the ribbon, opening a new wing dedicated to educating young people about music history and preservation. "How does it feel?" a reporter asked. "Returning to where it all started?" Maya looked at the building that had terrified her that first night, at the penthouse where she'd found fortune, at the vault where she'd been trapped. "It feels like closure," she said. "I was running when I came here. Running from poverty, from fear, from uncertainty. This place taught me that sometimes the scariest doors are the ones we need to open. Sometimes the things that seem cursed are just waiting for someone brave enough to look past the fear." She pulled Lily close. "And sometimes the greatest treasure isn't what you find. It's who you become finding it." Years later, when Lily was applying to colleges and writing her admissions essay, she asked Maya about that Christmas they'd spent trapped in the basement vault. "Did you know it would all work out?" Lily asked. Maya thought about that night, about holding her daughter in a concrete bunker with armed men trying to break in, about having no plan and no hope. "No," she admitted. "I was terrified. I thought we might not survive. But I knew I had to try, because you deserved better than watching your mom give up. I'm writing about it. About how you taught me that sometimes you have to be scared and brave at the same time. That's not a bad lesson. What would you tell people who are where we were? People who are desperate and scared and don't know what to do? Maya considered the question. I'd tell them that sometimes life puts you at an auction for abandoned mansions. Sometimes you bid with your last dollar because you're out of options. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to walk through the broken doors and check behind the locked ones, you find something that changes everything. She smiled. But mostly I'd tell them that whatever treasure they find, whether it's master recordings or just the strength to keep going, the real fortune is surviving with your dignity intact and your family safe. The documentary about the discovery and legal battle won an Emmy. The first official release of the concert recordings went platinum. Maya's trust fund for Lily grew to enough for any college in the world. And somewhere in a Nevada desert, a mansion that everyone had once called cursed stood as a museum, a testament to one desperate mother's bid, one impossible discovery, and one truth that echoed through everything. Fortune doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits in abandoned places for someone brave enough, or desperate enough, to break through the floor and see what's been hidden below. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones everyone else walks past because they're too afraid to look. And sometimes, just sometimes, buying a cursed mansion for your last dollar is exactly the right decision, even if you can't possibly know it at the time. The museum's success exceeded every projection. Within 3 years of opening, it became one of Nevada's top cultural destinations, drawing over 200,000 visitors annually. School groups came to learn about music history and preservation. Music industry professionals came to study the equipment and techniques. And countless ordinary people came because they'd heard about the single mother who'd found fortune in an abandoned mansion. Maya walked through the exhibits on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Lily beside her doing homework on a tablet while her mother supervised a new installation. At 16, Lily had grown into a poised young woman who spoke 3 languages and was already being recruited by top universities for their music history and archival studies programs. "Mom, there's someone here to see you," Lily said, looking up from her calculus. "Security just called. They said it's important." Maya made her way to the museum's administrative offices. In the waiting area sat an elderly woman, impeccably dressed, with silver hair styled in a way that spoke of old Hollywood glamour. She stood when Maya entered, extending a hand with rings that caught the light. "Miss Chen. My name is Eleanor Banning. I was Cher's personal assistant from 1987 to 1999. I've been trying to reach you for some time." Maya's heart skipped. In all the years since the discovery, she'd never heard directly from anyone in Cher's inner circle. The star herself had remained notably silent on the matter, issuing only a brief statement through her publicist years ago saying she was pleased the recordings were being preserved properly. "Please, sit. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be lovely." Eleanor settled into a chair with the grace of someone who'd spent decades in the presence of celebrities. "I owe you an explanation." "Several, actually." Maya poured water from the pitcher on her desk, her hands steady despite the questions racing through her mind. "I'm listening." When Cher built that mansion in the mid-90s, she was in a complicated place personally and professionally. The house was meant to be a sanctuary, a place where she could work without the pressures of Los Angeles. She invested millions into that recording studio, the Penthouse one you found. It was state-of-the-art. "What about the vault? The basement archive?" Eleanor's expression grew complicated. "That was my doing, actually. I'd worked in the music industry long enough to see too many artists lose control of their work. Fires in warehouses, labels going bankrupt, masters being sold off to pay debts. I convinced Cher to create a secure backup archive, copies of everything, stored separately, protected. But she left it all behind. Not intentionally. In 1998, Cher's mother became seriously ill. She needed to be in Los Angeles for treatment. The Vegas mansion became impossible to maintain from a distance. properties were consolidated. The mansion was meant to be sold with the understanding that certain assets would be retrieved first. What happened? Eleanor's voice grew bitter. Her business manager at the time, a man named Gregory Vincent, was supposed to handle the retrieval and sale. He assured us everything was packed, archived, transferred. We had no reason to doubt him. He'd been handling her affairs for 15 years. But he didn't do it. He did not. What we learned later, too late, was that Gregory was embezzling millions of dollars over several years. When his scheme started to collapse, he simply vanished. Fled to the Cayman Islands with what he could liquidate quickly. The Vegas property, the recordings, all of it was forgotten in the chaos of trying to recover from the theft and rebuild financial systems. Maya absorbed this. So Cher didn't abandon the recordings. She thought they'd been secured. Exactly. By the time we realized what Gregory hadn't done, the property had changed hands twice in foreclosure proceedings. Each time, we tried to track down the recordings, but the various owners either knew nothing about them or weren't willing to grant access. The security systems Gregory had installed made the archives virtually invisible unless you knew exactly what you were looking for. Why didn't Cher fight harder to recover them? Eleanor's smile was sad. Pride, partially. The whole situation with Gregory was humiliating, a trusted advisor stealing millions, critical assets lost. Cher's legal team advised that pursuing the recordings through court would mean admitting negligence, providing ammunition for other lawsuits. It seemed safer to let them stay lost. Until I found them. Until you found them. And do you know what Cher said when she heard the news? Eleanor leaned forward. She said, "Good. They found someone who'll fight for them." She was genuinely happy that a mother trying to protect her daughter ended up with the resources to do so. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I thought she must have been angry. That I'd stolen something precious from her. On the contrary. She's been following your story closely. The legal battle, the museum, the preservation work. She asked me to deliver a message personally. Eleanor reached into her handbag and withdrew an envelope, heavy cream paper with elegant handwriting. This is for you. Maya opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten letter on personal stationery. Dear Maya. I've spent 50 years in an industry that teaches you to hold tight to everything, your image, your masters, your control. Sometimes that instinct is right. Sometimes it makes you miss what really matters. Those recordings you found represent some of the happiest creative moments of my life. The Penthouse studio was where I felt most free to experiment, to fail, to try things that might not work. I mourned losing that space and that freedom more than I mourned losing the commercial value of the masters. But what you've done, turning that pain into a museum, into education, into preservation, has given those recordings a legacy I never could have created myself. You took something I lost and made it matter in ways I never imagined. The money you earned from the licensing deals? You deserved every penny. You fought for those recordings when I'd given up. You protected them when others wanted to exploit them. You turned my abandoned creativity into cultural history. I have only one request. The museum has been successful beyond anyone's expectations. I'd like to contribute an endowment, $50 million, to ensure it remains open in perpetuity, that music education and preservation continue for future generations. No strings attached. No naming rights. No publicity unless you choose it. Just my way of saying thank you for being brave enough to break through that basement floor. With admiration and respect, Cher. Maya read the letter 3 times, unable to process the words fully. $50 million. An endowment that would secure the museum's future forever. She means it, Eleanor said softly. The money's already been transferred to the museum's foundation account. It's yours, well, the museum's, no conditions except that it be used for music education and preservation. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything to me. But Cher would like to meet you, if you're willing. No cameras, no publicity. Just two women who ended up connected by a mansion, some recordings, and choices made years apart that somehow led to this moment. The meeting was arranged for the following month at a private estate in Malibu. Maya drove alone. Lily had exams and insisted her mother go without her. "This is your moment, Mom. You earned it." The estate was breathtaking, all glass and ocean views, but Maya barely noticed. She was too nervous, too aware that she was about to meet someone who'd been an icon for decades, someone whose abandoned recordings had changed Maya's entire life. Cher herself answered the door, dressed simply in jeans and a flowing top, her famous hair pulled back casually. She smiled, and Maya saw warmth in her eyes that photographs never quite captured. "Maya. Come in. I've been looking forward to this." They sat on a terrace overlooking the Pacific, drinking tea, two women separated by fame and fortune but connected by the strange path of abandoned property and recovered art. "Eleanor told me she delivered the letter," Cher said. "I hope it wasn't too overwhelming." Overwhelming is an understatement. The endowment, it's too generous. It's not generous. It's right. You know, I've made a lot of money in my career. Hundreds of millions. I've spent it on houses, cars, art, causes I believed in. But I've never spent money on something that felt as right as this does. She looked out at the ocean. "That mansion, I loved it when I built it. It represented freedom, creativity, a place where I could just be myself without the machinery of fame grinding around me. But it became a burden, then a loss, then a regret. What changed? You. What you did with it. I watched the documentaries, read the articles, saw the interviews. You could have sold those recordings to the highest bidder, walked away with a fortune and disappeared. Instead, you fought to preserve them, to make them matter for more than just money." Cher turned to look at Maya directly. "You turned my failure to protect my own work into a legacy of preservation. You took a story about abandoned art and made it a story about courage, about a mother protecting her daughter, about making sure cultural history survives. I just did what I had to do. That's what makes it remarkable. You didn't set out to be a hero or a preservationist. You set out to find shelter for your daughter. Everything else was just you being decent and stubborn enough to fight for what was right." They talked for 3 hours. Cher shared stories about recording some of the albums Maya had found, about the creative process, about collaborations with other artists that had almost happened but fell through. Maya shared what the past few years had been like, the legal battles, the stress, the gradual realization that she'd stumbled into something far bigger than herself. "What will you do now?" Cher asked. "You've got the museum, the licensing income, Lily's trust fund. You've achieved financial security. What's next?" Maya had been thinking about this question for months. "I want to help other people. There are thousands of foreclosed properties every year, thousands of families desperate like I was. I want to create a program, education about property rights, legal assistance for people who find valuable items in foreclosed homes, support for single parents trying to navigate the system. That's ambitious. It's necessary. I got lucky. I found something valuable enough that I could afford lawyers to fight for me. Most people don't. They find something worth a few $1,000s and lose it immediately because they don't know their rights or can't afford to defend them." Cher nodded slowly. "What if I told you I wanted to help with that too? What if we created a foundation together, the Chen Foundation for Property Rights and Cultural Preservation? You run it, I fund it, we help people protect what they find and preserve what matters." Maya stared. "You're serious?" "Completely. You've got the passion and the experience. I've got the resources and the platform. Together, we could actually make a difference." 6 months later, the Chen Foundation officially launched with an initial endowment of $100 million from Cher and $5 million from Maya's own licensing income. The foundation's mission was threefold: educate people about property rights and foreclosure law, provide legal assistance to those who discovered valuable items in purchased properties, and fund cultural preservation projects. Within the first year, the foundation helped 37 families across the United States protect discoveries ranging from valuable art to historical documents to rare collectibles. They funded preservation of 6 endangered music archives and created an educational program about property rights that was adopted by 3 state legal systems. Maya hired Eleanor Banning as the foundation's chief operating officer. Torres became head of investigations, helping people verify the authenticity of their finds and navigate legal complexities. Moss served as the legal director, managing the team of attorneys who provided free representation. And Lily, now 17 and preparing for college, became the foundation's youth ambassador, speaking at schools about her family's experience and the importance of knowing your rights. "It's weird," Lily told her mother one night as they reviewed college acceptance letters. "We went from sleeping in the car to running a foundation with Cher. Sometimes I forget how crazy that is." "Never forget," Maya said seriously. "Never forget where we came from or how lucky we were. Luck and courage and a lot of people helping us when they didn't have to. Which college do you think I should choose?" Maya looked at the acceptance letters spread across their dining room table. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Berkeley, all offering full rides plus additional scholarships. "Whichever one feels right to you, baby. You've earned every one of these opportunities." Lily picked up the Berkeley letter. "I like their music and technology program. And it's close enough that I can still help with the foundation on weekends." "You don't have to do that. College is your time to focus on yourself. Mom, you spent my whole childhood fighting to give me opportunities. Let me spend my college years helping other people get the same chances." Lily smiled. "Besides, someone has to make sure you and Cher don't get too carried away with the foundation projects. You're both stubborn enough to accidentally take over the entire foreclosure system if someone doesn't supervise." Maya laughed, pulling her daughter into a hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." The museum's 5th anniversary celebration was a major event. Cher attended, her first public appearance at the site, and the media coverage was extensive. But what moved Maya most wasn't the celebrity or the press. It was the families. 37 families who'd been helped by the foundation attended, each with their own story. A widow who'd found her late husband's unpublished novel in a storage unit and fought to publish it. A teacher who'd discovered rare scientific journals in an abandoned school and donated them to a university. A veteran who'd found historical military documents and worked with the foundation to return them to the National Archives. Each one stood and shared their story, and each one thanked Maya and the foundation for helping them protect what they'd found. When it was Maya's turn to speak, she stood at the podium looking out at the crowd, the families, the foundation staff, museum visitors, Lily and Cher sitting together in the front row, and she felt the weight of 5 years of transformation. "When I bought that mansion for $8,347, she began, "I wasn't looking for master recordings worth millions. I wasn't looking to start a museum or a foundation. I was looking for a roof over my daughter's head and some hope that tomorrow might be better than today." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "What I found taught me something crucial. We often think treasures are obvious, gold bars, priceless art, obvious wealth. But real treasures are more subtle. Sometimes a treasure is discovering that ordinary people have rights powerful institutions have to respect. Sometimes it's learning that cultural history matters enough that strangers will fight to preserve it. Sometimes it's realizing that your worst moment of desperation can become the turning point towards something better." Maya looked at Lily. "My daughter asked me once if I knew everything would work out. I didn't. I was terrified every single day. But I kept moving forward because that's what you do when you have someone depending on you. You break through locked doors. You document everything. You call for help. You fight even when you're scared." She turned to address the families who'd been helped by the foundation. "You all did the same thing. You found something valuable, maybe not worth millions, but valuable, and you fought to protect it. You called us when you needed help. You stood up for your rights even when it was scary. That's courage. That's what treasure really looks like." The applause was thunderous, but Maya barely heard it. She was too focused on the faces in the crowd, on the stories they represented, on the reality that something good had come from her desperate bid at that auction 5 years ago. After the ceremony, a journalist from Rolling Stone approached for an interview. She'd been following the story since the beginning and was writing a long-form piece about the cultural impact of the discovery. Looking back now, the journalist asked, "Do you think the mansion was really cursed? 3 previous owners went bankrupt or worse before you bought it." Maya considered the question. "I think the mansion held something so valuable that it destroyed people who tried to exploit it or hide it. The previous owners all tried to use the property for their own gain, flipping it, hiding assets, whatever. They approached it with greed, not respect. But you approached it differently." "I approached it with desperation. I needed shelter. When I found the recordings, I didn't immediately think about how much money I could make. I thought about how to protect them, how to make sure they were preserved properly. Maybe that made the difference. So the curse was really just consequences for greed? Maybe. Or maybe the mansion was just waiting for someone who'd appreciate what was there instead of trying to exploit it." Maya smiled. "Either way, I don't believe in curses anymore. I believe in choices and consequences and the reality that sometimes broken doors lead to treasures if you're brave enough to look." The Foundation's work expanded internationally by year 7. They helped a family in London discover that letters stored in their foreclosed flat were correspondence between famous authors, worth over £1 million. They assisted someone in Tokyo who found rare manga original art. They supported a team in Berlin recovering music archives from the Cold War era. Each case followed the same pattern: someone desperate buying cheap property, finding something valuable, and needing help protecting it from people with more resources and fewer scruples. "We're creating a new model," Moss explained during a Foundation board meeting. Before, people who found valuable items were isolated, easy to intimidate or legally overwhelm. Now they have a network. They have resources. They have us. "How many cases are we handling now?" Cher asked from her seat at the board table. 43 active cases globally. Another 120 in preliminary assessment. And we're getting 3 to 5 new inquiries every day. That's unsustainable with current staffing, Eleanor noted. We need to expand or start being more selective about which cases we take. Expand, Maya and Cher said simultaneously. The Foundation grew. More lawyers, more investigators, more preservation experts. They opened offices in New York, London, and Tokyo. They created partnerships with major museums and archives worldwide. They developed educational programs taught in schools across 3 continents. And through it all, Maya remained grounded by the memory of sitting in that auction house with her last $8,000, making a desperate bid on a property everyone else was afraid to touch. When Lily graduated from Berkeley with a double major in music history and technology, she joined the Foundation full-time as Director of Digital Preservation. Her thesis had developed new techniques for digitally archiving analog recordings, and major institutions were already adopting her methods. "I can't believe my daughter is legitimately changing how we preserve cultural history," Maya said at Lily's graduation party. "I learned from my mom who changed how we think about property rights and cultural discovery," Lily countered. "We're just doing what we can with what we've learned." Cher, attending as a guest, raised her glass. To the Chen women, proof that one desperate decision can echo across generations and change the world. The toast was prophetic. Over the next decade, the Foundation's work influenced policy changes in 17 countries. Property rights laws were reformed to better protect cultural discoveries. Educational programs reached over 2 million students. And countless items of cultural significance were preserved that would otherwise have been lost or destroyed. But perhaps the most meaningful impact was personal. Every year, the Foundation held a reunion gathering for all the families they'd helped. It grew from 37 families that first year to over 400 by year 15. They came from around the world, diverse backgrounds and circumstances, united by shared experiences of discovery, fear, and fighting for what was right. Maya walked through those gatherings and heard stories that mirrored her own. Single parents who'd found hope in unexpected places. People on their last dollar who'd taken desperate chances. Families who'd been terrified but fought anyway. "You saved my life," a woman from Chicago told Maya at the 15th year gathering. "I'd found my grandmother's paintings in a foreclosed house. She'd been a Holocaust survivor and had hidden her art before fleeing Germany. The house's previous owners were trying to claim them. Your foundation helped me prove my grandmother's ownership. Those paintings are in a museum now. Her story survived because you helped me fight." "You fought," Maya corrected. "We just gave you the tools. You gave me hope. You showed me that ordinary people can win against powerful institutions. That matters more than the paintings." Stories like that sustained Maya through the challenges, the cases they lost, the legal setbacks, the times when resources were stretched thin. Every time she doubted, she remembered sitting in that concrete bunker with Lily, surrounded by master recordings worth millions, terrified but refusing to give up. By year 20, the museum had hosted over 4 million visitors. The foundation had helped over 800 families worldwide. The Chen endowment had grown to $400 million through careful management and additional contributions. And Lily, now in her 30s, was running both operations with the confidence of someone who'd grown up watching her mother turn disaster into destiny. Maya, in her 50s, stepped back from day-to-day operations but remained involved in strategic decisions. She spent her time traveling, visiting foundation offices, speaking at universities, and mentoring other single parents navigating difficult circumstances. She also wrote a book, not about the discovery itself, but about the lessons learned. It was called Breaking Through: What a Desperate Bid at an Auction Taught Me About Courage, Property Rights, and Preserving What Matters. The book became a bestseller, particularly among people facing foreclosure or financial hardship. Maya donated all proceeds to the foundation. "You know what's funny?" Lily said during a quiet dinner, just the two of them, 23 years after that first auction. "We could have just sold those recordings to the highest bidder, taken the money, and disappeared. We'd be wealthy and anonymous. Would you prefer that?" "God, no. But I'm curious, did you ever consider it? Just taking the money and running?" Maya thought back to those early days, to the terror and uncertainty. "For about 5 minutes, when we were trapped in that vault with armed men trying to break in, I thought maybe it wasn't worth it, maybe we should just give up the recordings and survive." "What changed your mind?" "I looked at you, sleeping in that chair, exhausted and scared. And I thought about what message I was sending you. If I gave up, if I let powerful people take something just because they were powerful, what would that teach you about standing up for yourself? About fighting for what's right?" Maya smiled. "So I decided that even if we lost everything, even if they took the recordings and we walked away with nothing, at least you'd know your mother fought. That she didn't just roll over when intimidated. That lesson was worth more than the money. Every single penny. Because look at you now, running a global foundation, changing laws, helping hundreds of people. You learn that fighting matters, even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Lily asked, "Any regrets?" Maya considered the question seriously. 23 years of legal battles, stress, public scrutiny, and relentless work. Only one. I wish I'd been less scared at the beginning. I wasted time doubting myself, wondering if I deserved to keep what I found, questioning whether I was smart enough to navigate everything. You were terrified and broke and alone. Of course you doubted yourself. I know. But I wish I'd trusted myself sooner. Trusted that I was capable of learning what I needed to learn, of fighting the fights that needed fighting. I would have suffered less if I'd believed in myself from the start. But you figured it out. Eventually. With a lot of help." Lily raised her glass. "To figuring it out, even when it takes time." The museum's 25th anniversary was marked by a special exhibition, Abandoned Treasures, 25 Years of Discovery and Preservation. It featured not just Cher's recordings, but items from every family the foundation had helped: paintings, manuscripts, rare recordings, historical documents, all displayed with the stories of how they'd been found and preserved. The centerpiece was a timeline showing Maya's journey from that first auction to the present day, with photographs, documents, and artifacts from each stage. The worn manila envelope from the auction house. The first photographs Maya took of the penthouse. The camera she'd used to document everything. Even the tire iron she'd wielded in that penthouse, facing down intruders. "It's like looking at a different life," Maya said to Cher as they walked through the exhibition the night before it opened to the public. "It is a different life," Cher agreed. "You're not that desperate woman anymore. You're someone who changed how we think about cultural preservation and property rights." "I'm still that woman," Maya corrected. "I just learned how to fight." At the public opening, Maya gave a speech to a crowd that included foundation families, museum supporters, legal scholars, and music industry professionals. 25 years ago, I made the scariest decision of my life," she began. "I bid $8,347 on a mansion everyone said was cursed. People at that auction looked at me with pity, like I was throwing away my last dollar on something worthless." She paused, scanning the crowd. "They were right to pity me. I was desperate, terrified, and had no plan beyond finding shelter for my daughter. But they were wrong about the mansion being worthless. And they were wrong about me being powerless." Maya gestured to the exhibition around them. "This museum, this foundation, these 800 families we've helped, all of it started because I was too desperate to be smart, too scared to give up, and too stubborn to let powerful people tell me what I deserved." She found Lily in the crowd, now 33 years old, successful and confident. "I bought a mansion hoping to give my daughter a roof over her head. What I actually gave her was proof that you don't have to be rich or powerful to fight for what's right. You just have to be willing to try." The applause lasted 5 minutes. When it finally quieted, someone from the back shouted, "What's next? What's the foundation's next goal?" Maya looked at Cher, who nodded encouragingly. They'd been planning this announcement for months. "We're creating an endowment fund," Maya announced. $500 million, raised through matching donations. Every dollar Cher and I contribute, we're asking others to match. The goal is to create a permanent global network that provides free legal services to anyone who discovers items of cultural significance in purchased property. The crowd murmured with excitement. $500 million, unprecedented in the cultural preservation world. "But here's the catch," Maya continued. "We're not just asking for money. We're asking for commitment. We want lawyers willing to volunteer time. Museums willing to provide authentication services. Educational institutions willing to teach property rights. We want to build something that outlasts us, that protects discoveries for generations to come." Within 6 months, the endowment reached its goal. Donors ranged from wealthy collectors to ordinary people contributing $20 in honor of their own stories of struggle and survival. The foundation's work expanded exponentially. They opened 20 more offices worldwide. They created partnerships with over 300 museums and archives. They trained 5,000 volunteer lawyers in property rights and cultural preservation law. And they helped thousands more families protect discoveries that might otherwise have been lost or stolen. On the 30th anniversary, Maya now 64, Lily 38, they returned to the original site. The mansion-turned-museum had been expanded twice, now including extensive archives, research facilities, and educational spaces. Standing in the penthouse studio where she'd first found the master recordings, Maya felt the weight of 3 decades of transformation. "Mom?" Lily appeared in the doorway, her own daughter, Maya's granddaughter Elena, age 5, holding her hand. "Elena wants to hear the story again. About how you found the treasure." Maya knelt down to Elena's level. "What do you want to know, sweetheart?" "Grandma, were you scared when you bought the scary house?" "Very scared." "But you did it anyway?" "I did it anyway." "Why?" Maya looked at Lily, then at this beautiful child who existed because her mother had fought through fear 3 decades ago. "Because being scared isn't a reason not to try. Being scared is just feeling an emotion." What matters is what you do even though you're scared. Elena considered this seriously. If I'm scared, should I still try things? If they're important things, if they're right things, yes. You try anyway. You might fail, but at least you tried. And sometimes, if you're very brave and very lucky, you find something amazing. Like treasure? Like treasure. But the real treasure isn't always money or recordings. Sometimes the real treasure is learning that you're braver than you thought. That you can survive hard things. That you can help other people survive hard things too. Elena nodded solemnly. I want to be brave like you, Grandma. You already are, sweetheart. You just haven't had to prove it yet. As the sun set over the Las Vegas Valley, Maya stood at the penthouse windows with 3 generations of her family, Lily, Elena, and Elena's baby brother Marcus sleeping in a carrier on Lily's back. They looked out over the city lights, the same view Maya had seen that first terrifying night when she'd found the recordings and had no idea what to do next. Thank you, Lily said quietly. For what? For being brave. For fighting. For showing me and now showing Elena that being a woman alone with nothing doesn't mean you're powerless. You had $8,000 and a daughter to protect, and you built all of this. Maya pulled her daughter close. I had more than $8,000. I had you. I had a reason to fight. That made all the difference. They stood together in the gathering darkness, 3 generations of women shaped by one desperate decision at a foreclosure auction. Below them, the museum was closing for the night, security guards making rounds, archivists preserving history, educators preparing tomorrow's lessons. Somewhere in the world, someone was facing foreclosure, making desperate choices, finding unexpected treasures. And when they did, when they needed help protecting what they'd found, the foundation would be there. Because Chen had bought a mansion everyone said was cursed, had found treasure everyone wanted to steal, had fought when fighting seemed impossible, and had won not just for herself but for everyone who came after. The mansion wasn't cursed. It was waiting. Waiting for someone brave enough, or desperate enough, to break through locked doors and see what treasures were hidden below. And sometimes, just sometimes, those treasures changed the world. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.